Come on, guys, come on. Look at the smoke on that thing. How's it going, guys? Welcome back. Today we're going to be making a crucial staple barbecue item that you may or may not be intimidated by, and you shouldn't be. Boston butt. This is what you make your pulled pork sandwiches out of. This is probably one of the most easiest barbecue items that you guys are going to ever have to come across. I'm going to walk you through the way that I make mine. When it comes to meat quality on a pork butt, there's only a couple things that you want to look for, and that's right here. You can see that the fat cap doesn't extend all the way. Normally I would like to get a fat cap that, covers the full surface area of the pork butt. So look for a good solid fat cap. Always get a bone-in pork butt too. One of the other things that I see people do is they'll try to cut this out. You don't want to cut out your pork butt, or you don't want to get a boneless pork butt, because keeping that bone in there retains some of the moisture throughout the cook. This is going to be a long cook, and you don't want this to dry out. The money muscle. You want to get a solid money muscle. You want to find a good intermuscular fat money muscle. We're going to go ahead and slice this open, and let me show you guys the way that I prep a Boston butt. Alright, when trimming up the Boston butt, you don't really have to do much. You just look for anything that's hanging off, like this piece right here. See how that hangs off? That's just gonna get pretty nasty over time in the cook. You want to trim that little loose stuff off like that. Just look for anything loose that's gonna burn up in the cook. You can choose to score this fat cap or leave it as it is. That's just personal preference. I like to make little scores on here. On the fat only, I don't score the actually meat if it's exposed like this right here. Just make nice little scores. The other side of this too. When it comes to barbecue and stuff, you want to make sure that you guys' knives are nice and sharp. Always sharpen your knives before you start every time. Scoring your fat cap also creates little pockets for your seasonings to kind of get into also. And then in the end, it kind of looks nice. I know that when it comes to pulled pork, as opposed to brisket and any other meat cook that you guys do, this is going to end up getting shredded. So it's not going to really matter what it looks like in the end, but I know that you guys are probably like me, and you just like to see the progression, and I don't know, you feel accomplished when you see a really nice looking bark on a nice cut of meat. It looks nice and sexy when it comes out just perfect. Alright, that's what that looks like. When it comes to seasoning up your pork butt, it really comes down to personal preference. Myself, I really like JDQ sweet barbecue rub on all pork, ribs, pork butt, anything I'm doing when it comes to pork. JDQ sweet barbecue rub, this is the all-time for me. A lot of people keep it simple and only do salt and pepper, through the rub, and that's their rub. For me, I'm smoking on a pellet grill, so you can say what you want. I don't think it comes close to actually smoking on an offset smoker. You're not going to get the amount of smoke flavor that you would get on an offset. So to supplement that, I would only be using some kind of rub like this. If it was an offset smoker that I was smoking on, I could get away with just salt and pepper, but that's not the case here. So I'm going to be using the JDQ sweet barbecue rub. This is my all-time favorite for pork. You guys want to completely coat this thing. Now, I don't use a binder. You can use a binder if you want to. I don't feel like you have to use a binder when it comes to pulled pork. That's just personal preference. You guys do you. Like I said, if this is the way that I do my pork butt, it's going to differ from you know, quite a bit of people. This is all personal preference. I'm just showing you guys the way that I do my pork butt. And there's nothing wrong with that either. You know, there's no right or wrong when it comes to barbecue. There's only personal preference, right? You guys want to just completely lather this thing up with your rub. You typically don't want to just season this up and throw it on. Usually you'll wait, you know, like 10 minutes to let it start giving it the meat sweats. People ask me what I use for pellets to get the most smoke flavor. My personal preference is the Jealous Devil Jack's barbecue pellets. I've kind of tried a few varieties of pellets, but this pellet brand right here, Jealous Devil, and this particular pellet, I've had the most luck on smoke flavor. I know that they have bits of bark in there, blend. They don't use a whole lot of filler wood. To me, personally, this is my favorite. It's a cherry, maple, and hickory blend pellet. This is what we're going to put in. Not to mention, they probably have the easiest packaging ever. Full flap. How cool is that? Just dump her in. One of the important things that people don't really think about when it comes to this also is timing. Anticipate on 10 to 11, maybe 12 hours at most. And you also need time to let this meat rest. That is a crucial thing that I see a lot of people not do. They'll yank this thing right off the smoker and immediately start crushing this up. And the second that you pull this off and it's super hot, you are gonna dry this thing out. You need to let that thing sit at least 1 hour, 2 hours tops. All right guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing on. One thing that people tend to forget about is heat management. For my smoker and my personal preference, I found that the hottest part of my smoker is actually where it's exhaling. I want to keep my money muscle away, and I want to keep the fattest part facing towards your hottest part of the smoker. And to me, that is where it's exhausting out. This area over here, I have a water pan. That's also something that's I found to help keep your meat moist in the cook during the cooking process. Crucial marriage tip I'd like to go ahead and throw in here as a bonus tip. Don't use your wife's good pans because she'll be very mad at you. That is a pro tip from me to you guys. We're gonna go ahead and let this cook. I have my smoker set at 200 degrees. We're gonna let this run for a good 5 hours at 200, and then I'll crank it up to 225, and then we'll go from there. So you don't want to be going over 250 for pellet smoker. You guys can use whatever you want to spritz your meat. People use apple cider vinegar. Some people use just water. I use apple juice, 100%. I hear people using Dr. Pepper. I think that would actually be a good thing to try. Basically, it's personal preference or what flavor profile you're trying to achieve. But we're going to start spritzing this meat. It's been about 3.5 hours. When it comes to spritzing, you want to spray the surface area of the meat itself. You do not want to spray the fat cap, because if you spray the fat cap, you're slowing down the process of rendering that fat. Because basically this is just going to be cooling it off. You want that fat cap to render down. And there is a little spot of meat up on the top right there on this particular pork butt, so I'm going to try and do my best not to spray the fat cap while getting that. But if for whatever reason you do spray down your fat cap, it's not the end of the world, it's just a longer process. Alright guys, we're 5 hours in. Let's take a look at her. I've been spritzing at 3 hours in every 45 minutes or so. Remember, try not to get that fat. About 146 internal. I'm going to bump up my heat to 225. We still have a way to go on this cook. The fat is beginning to render quite nicely for the temp we are at. Continue to spritz the butt every 30 minutes or so to avoid drying out. I'd say she's coming along. One other mistake that I always find that people are coming across is they just get too impatient. Trust the process. This is a 10-hour plus cook. Don't crank your heat up because you don't think you're getting it done fast enough. You know, like I talked about earlier, time management is a big deal in barbecue. If you're cooking for your family at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you're just putting it on at 10 o'clock, then I think you're SOL. Don't go off of temperature alone. Some people say to wrap it at 165, some people say to wrap it at 155, 170 mid-range, about mid 170, upper 170. You know, that's whenever you're going to really start seeing your fat rendering pretty good. Just go off of your gut. If the fat is sinking in when you're touching it, that's what you're looking for. This one clearly is not ready to be wrapped yet. We're only at 150 internal. We still got a little ways to go before we wrap this thing up. I went ahead and turned it around. I want to rotate that to make sure that I get even cooking and I don't overcook the one side. Figure out where your hot points are in your smoker and work around that. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about, guys. This is ready to pull and wrap. When you push in the fat and it doesn't have any pushback or it doesn't feel spongy, it just caves right in. That's how you guys know that that fat is completely rendered and ready to go. Temperature is at upper 170. I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing wrapped up and we're gonna finish this thing up, guys. Some people wrap their pork butt in foil. Some people wrap their pork butt in butcher's paper. That's what I do. Some people don't wrap at all. Just personal preference. This is what I do. I'll typically get this wrapped up into a butcher paper. Can you shut that for me? Alright guys. Look at the bark on that thing. Them dogs are barking. You know, first and foremost, try not to take any meat off of here and eat it. That's a pro tip for you. At this point, what I like to do, I like to kind of add a little more moisture into this wrap and flavor. What I'll do is I'll put a little bit of barbecue sauce in a cup. You could be Charlie. Put a little bit of barbecue sauce in a cup. Could be whatever barbecue sauce you guys use. And then I'll come in with some apple juice to thin it out. So basically, you're just kind of thinning out some barbecue sauce with your apple juice or whatever liquid you were using, just so you kind of get a thin barbecue sauce. I actually prefer the Clark Crew barbecue sauce. I'm actually using the competition stuff, which is fantastic. You guys should check them out. So basically I have kind of a thinned out barbecue sauce with the apple juice, and I'm just going to kind of get that all over this. I know that bark looks amazing and I kind of feel like I'm ruining it a little bit with doing it this way, but I'm telling you guys, you're not going to be disappointed. You know, if you wanted to, throw some more of your seasoning on top of this just to kind of add a little more seasoning to it, or whatever you're doing your rub, you could do that too. Maybe I'll put a little seasoning on top. And go. That's optional, you don't have to do that. You guys want to get this as kind of as tight as possible. I'm just going to put this like this on the grill, and at this point you can throw it back on your pellet smoker, or you can finish it in an oven. At this point, all you're wanting to do is cook it to its tenderness. The fact that the grill is going to be smoking and all that, it doesn't matter at this point. You got the smoke flavor, you're at this point just getting to the finish line, and that's all that matters right now. Point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it up to 250, and then it shouldn't take long after this point. Basically, the whole point of wrapping it is to push it through the stall, which is 160 to your finish line, 200, 205. Wrapping it kind of retains in the heat. Whenever the meat gets to that point, 160-ish, it just takes an exaggerated amount of time to get to the finish line. The meat wants to sweat out, just like whenever you're exercising or something, you're sweating to cool down. That's basically what this meat is doing. It's trying to cool down. It's pushing out its sweat, its juices to cool down. By wrapping it, you're retaining all that heat to get you to the finish line. So that's basically what we're doing. Plus, you're keeping all that moisture in an enclosed area, so when we do open this, all the juices are in there. We can run our shredded meat through that juice. We're gonna kind of let it do its thing for a minute. I'm gonna keep checking on this. We're gonna try and get to about 200. So basically, that's what you're looking for at this point. I'm gonna keep an eye on the temp, especially once it gets to the 200 range. We want this thing to probe in with no resistance, and it just feels like butter. That's what we're shooting for. So let me get back to you guys. It's been 12 hours. Let's take a look at this thing. We should be ready to pull this thing off. 203 in a fat spot. Basically, the main part that matters right here, you want to be in about 200, 205, 208 range. The one thing that matters right now is, how does it feel? I mean, there's like no resistance right here. There's no resistance. Feels like butter. So I'd say we're about done. I'm gonna take this thing off, and we're gonna get it rested up. All right, guys. Right now, we need to let this thing rest for, I'd say, it'd have to rest at least 1 hour. At least 1 hour. Basically, you just want to bring this thing down to temperature about 165 before you start shredding this up. Because if I took this out right now, threw it in here, started shredding this up, it's gonna, like that, dry out. You don't want that. I want to fight every urge I have to rip this open and start eating this right now, but you gotta fight it, guys. Trust the process. So we're gonna throw this in a cooler and we're gonna wait. That's all we can do, guys. I think that it's about time. She's been sitting for about an hour and a half. Let's go ahead and pull her out and see what we're dealing with here. Here we're about right at 165. Let's go ahead and see what we're dealing with here. Look at that. How does that look? So this has been on for 12 hours. Let's see how it is. Look at that. Look at that. There ain't like no meat on that thing. That was a good bone pull. Alright guys, I just feel how sticky and juicy this looks. Come on guys, come on. Look at the smoke on that thing. Just look at that, guys. Look at the smoke on this. I just want to see a good bit of the smoke ring. Look at that. I think that looked pretty good. I don't know about y'all. You can tell the fat's like completely rendered here. You're just sinking it right in. The biggest take from this that I really want to press onto you guys is just trust the process. It's a long cook. This was 12 hours in total, not including the hour and a half. So it was like a 13 and a half hour from point A to point Z. It is what it is, but I'll tell you what, that was completely worth it. You guys just get up in here and just shred it by hand. I mean, you can use your little meat claws or whatever. I find that doing it by hands is the easiest way. It's hot enough to burn your hands, and it's probably too hot to be shredding it because it's just going to dry out. With this fat cap, I'm going to give me a good chunk of that. Yeah, this turned out fantastic, and I'll tell you what, it's well worth the wait, guys. So just shred it up the best you can. And another little tip for you, I'm just cooking this for myself, so it doesn't matter to me. I'm going to eat the most of this that I can, and then I'm going to put it in the fridge, and then that's going to be all she wrote for this. But when you're cooking for other people, you want to shred as you go. If I shred this whole thing and it's going to sit for a little while, it's going to dry out. You can take this recipe per se and kind of make it your own as far as the rubs you use. You're injecting, you're not injecting, the spritzing. This is basically just how I make my pork butt. It's worked out for me every single time that I've made it. There's no right or wrong when it comes to making barbecue your own. So once again, trust the process. This is barbecue takes time. No rushing on barbecue. Or you're gonna make mistakes. That's just the way it is. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. How about that?